Golden hour is one of my favorite times of day to shoot portraits. It can really give the skin a really beautiful glow, as well as emphasize and flatter other parts of the subject, as well as the landscape. If it's your first time here, my name is Tommy and I'm a portrait photographer from Melbourne. And today I'm going to be sharing with you how to edit this photo that I shot recently in the golden hour. So stick around and please enjoy. So this is the raw image that we're going to be using today. It's not too different to the reference image, but there are some slight tweaks here and there that make this image a lot more brighter, have the edges pop a little bit more, and obviously have a more cohesive color palette. And so let's get into it. First thing I always do is adjust the balance. So what I might do here is I'm going to decrease the highlights a little bit, just so I get a little bit of information here. I don't want it to go all the way. I usually don't go all the way for any of these settings, but what I want to do for the highlights is decrease by 80, and also do the same thing with the whites. Obviously the image looks a little bit underexposed now, so I'm going to increase the exposure by a little bit. Awesome. And then now you can see the image is a lot more flat to work with. From here I'm going to increase the clarity by around 30, and already from this you can already see that it's already increased the micro contrast of the grass in the background and also the edges of the face. As you can see, there's the highlight here which has been elevated a lot, and same with all the shadows in the image as well. So with only tweaking these 4 things, I can show you the before and after, and already the subject is already more prominent and more obvious in the image. Next thing I like to do is I like to go into the tone curve and make some changes here. So first things first, I'm going to decrease this by a tiny bit, maybe around here. And then also I usually like to give it a little bit of a fade. Cool. And then also I want to bring this back up to the center to increase the exposure of the midtones. Awesome. So I'll do a before and after of the tone curve. Before, after, before, after. So what that's given me is a bit more balance of the tone curve on up the top. Moving on to the red channel, we are going to change top bit, make it slightly bit greener, and then also a bit more red in the shadows. Awesome. Moving on to the green channel, we're going to make it slightly green in the sky, and then also adjusting this red channel to make it even more red. With the blue channel, I think I'm going to leave it as it is for now. So I'm going to hit back to the RGB. Moving on to the HSL, what we're going to do is we're going to try coordinate this entire palette and make it more cohesive together. So one way to do that, obviously there's a lot more reds involved in the photo right now as compared to the original image. And so we're going to bring up the reds and bring down the yellows to make it more of the same orange style. All right, let's get into it. So we're going to increase the reds by a third, and then also increase the oranges a tiny bit, and then also decrease the yellows so it goes more onto the orange side. Perfect. Cool. So already from these 3 tweaks, if I hit before and after, you can see that the color palette is already more coordinated. And then on the green channel, we're going to assess where there is green in the photo, and obviously it's in her top over here. I think this is probably too green for the photo, so I'm going to move it down this side all the way to yellow because I kind of want it to not take away too much of the attention. We're also going to decrease the blues a tiny bit, which I always do, -10. And so these are the hue changes I'm going to keep for now. Moving into saturation, we are going to adjust the reds as well. So I'm going to have a play around with this. Probably I see more of the skin tones popping when I do this, so I'm going to keep that here. And then I'm going to increase the oranges probably, yeah. And also let's check out where there is yellow in the photo. So obviously it's in the highlights of here, but I'm going to probably reduce it for this photo for the time being. Also going to decrease the greens, which is like the color of her top, Cool. And let's move on to luminance as well. Let's see, the red channel, I might just keep that as it is. I'll probably make some slight dodge and burn changes only in Photoshop, so I'll keep that here, but I will increase the oranges a tiny bit, let's say 15, and then increase the yellow channel, which is mostly the where the sunlight hits in the photo. So I'm going to increase that by a little bit, let's say to 25. And then with the green, let's see what that affects. Awesome, so it's giving a slight highlight on the side of her top. So let's just bump that up all the way. Awesome, so now we've done our HSL changes, we can move on to everything else. That's good. Let's move on to split toning. So obviously you can see right now the image is very predominantly orange. And what I like to do with split toning is to apply an image that is of the contrasting or complementary color. And what that will do is bring a bit more balance to the image. So since this is a very orange image, let's bring back some blue or teal to it. So what I usually like to do is like to go to 180 and then just give it around 6 if the image is in golden hour, and then increase the shadows by a tiny bit just in the red section where it's very warm by the same amount. And what you can tell just by these two tweaks already, if I hit before and after, is that there's already been some blue applied to the sky as well as some of the highlights in her face, and the warm shadows have been applied to not only in the hair but all of the other darker areas of the image. And so what that has done is given more color in the sky but also made the overall mood of the image a bit more warmer and a bit more intense. So going down to the details, my usual settings are just hitting 60, enabling both of these and reducing the vignetting. I usually don't touch the vignetting in effects, but I will add grain and we'll touch on that later. This is what the grain amount looks like. So if you hit before, no grain, and after, it's just a stylistic touch for me. And also the last thing I like to do is calibration. I don't think there's probably too much, maybe just increasing the saturation here a little bit. Awesome. So now we've got all these changes done. We're pretty much done with all of these slider tweaks in Lightroom. So the last thing that we're going to do is to enhance the eyes a tiny bit. And so we're going to use this brush tool, and I've got my eye preset over here. And then what we're going to do is just use a very soft brush to lightly go over the eyes. Cool. And obviously this was very intense. We're going to dial it back to maybe half, and then close. And then there we have the photo. And then now we're going to add one last tweak, which is a little bit of exposure to only the top part of the image. So what we're going to do is we're going to add a 0.2 exposure with the gradient tool and just apply from the top to the bottom. And I'm going to show you where it's applied. So it's applied to the red part of the image. If I hit O, I can see that. So I'm going to hit O again to hide that, and I'll show you the before and after. So this is before using the gradient tool, and after, before and after. So pretty much it's given more attention to the light at the top. So for the viewer's eyes, it means that they start viewing the image from the top to the bottom, from light to dark. And so again, the final image before and after. Here we are, before and after, before and after. So now we're pretty much ready to move this image into Photoshop for some skin retouching. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click, edit in Photoshop. And we're just going to wait for that to load. Awesome. So now we've got our project in Photoshop. You can ignore all these other images that I've edited. So let's just start here. The first thing that I want to do is we're going to apply a frequency separation. I've already got an action up here, but I'll show you how to do it manually anyway. So the first thing that we want to do is we want to duplicate the background. So that's hitting Command J once to duplicate it, and I'm going to hit it one more time. So we're going to call this layer the texture layer, and we're going to call this layer the color layer. And so we're going to hide the texture layer, and with the color layer, we're going to add a small blur to it, a small Gaussian blur. So we're going to go around 3 and hit OK. And then we're going to apply the texture layer again, going to image, apply image, and then applying it to the color, blending mode to subtract, and then we're going to use these settings over here for our frequency separation. Awesome. Hitting OK, and then changing the blending mode from normal to linear light. And so what that is going to do for us, it's just going to separate the texture from the color. If you guys would like, I'd have another full in-depth screen retouching tutorial. I just went over really quickly in this one just to keep this video short and sweet. Cool. So now we're on texture and color. We're going to group these together. And then let's see. With the color layer, I like to start with our healing brush tool. So that's myself hitting J. And then let's zoom in. So what we're going to do is we're going to quickly retouch the skin over here. Basically, we want to sample parts of the image that look good and then apply that to the parts of the images where it looks kind of patchy, or it might need to have that color to blend the skin. So I'm going to just go over this one really quickly. So we're going to sample and apply, sample and apply. So it really helps if you understand contouring and how the face of shapes work when we are working with frequency separation. And that's kind of what separates the good frequency separation from, let's say, the lazy ones. Contrary to most people, I do like to keep kind of like a darker eye bag in the photos. I think it does give like a different kind of feel to it. And then this is pretty much the face retouch with the color. We're going to move on to texture over here. I'm going to increase my brush size and just applying a bit of everywhere to smoothen the texture of the skin. So we're going to select textures of the image where it is good, and we're going to use those samples to apply over the places that we want to change. Awesome. So I'm going to zoom out, and then I think I can still work on the chin, the jawline over here a little bit, the cheekbone. But here's the before and after, before and after. I think it needs a bit of burn, so I'm gonna just extend this out a tiny bit. Also give it some more shape up here. Awesome. So before and after, before and after. Cool. So we can move on to the rest of the shoulder and the arm over here. For this one, I'm going to use a slightly bigger brush. Actually, a lot bigger brush. So around this size. And then we can start applying this to the skin. I think for areas of the body where it's not the face, we can be a little bit lenient on how we want to apply it. I think it doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm just going to basically hint out the lines of the skin. Cool. Pretty much guiding the user's eye with the color of the skin. You know, there's so many ways people skin retouch now. So there is no right or wrong. Awesome. So now we have this. We're just going to touch up this side a little bit as well. Great. So let's look at the before and after of this skin retouching. Before and after, before and after. So we've smoothed a lot of the skin, but to make it more natural, what I generally like to do is I just like to, after I've done all the skin retouching, I just like to decrease the opacity. So that brings back some of the natural imperfections to the image, which is to me completely fine. And so there we go, we have the image over here. And then we're going to duplicate this color layer, and then we're going to apply some light dodge and burn. I don't usually like to apply too much, but let's see how we go here. So we're just going to increase the contouring of the face. So applying a little bit on the nose, and then a bit just under the eyes, downwards here, and then a bit just above the lips. And then maybe across here as well. Cool, and then maybe up on the chin, and then on the other side as well, where it catches a bit more light naturally. Awesome. So if I show you before and after of the dodging, there it is. There it is, that's the shape I made. Probably do a little more here as well. Awesome. So before and after. Before and after. And I'm going to do a light dodge also on just the top of the shoulder. I'm going to increase this by double. And we're going to duplicate this layer again. So just a super light highlight on the parts of the skin where we want to contour. Awesome. Other side as well. Great. Perfect. So this is our image over here. I'm going to be showing you before and after. Before and after. Awesome. So that is pretty much the edit over here. We've done the Lightroom settings and we've done the Photoshop skin retouching. And this is the final image. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up and a comment. Let me know how I did with producing these videos. Obviously, I am still learning how to make videos. So please go easy on me or go hard if you'd like. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one. Thank you. Peace. Golden hour. I'm sure you know. Golden hour. 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 Whoosh.